Hi, I'm Charles with Handicap. The story begins as our protagonist Tojima trains in the woods. He punches a tree multiple times while saying Rider Punch over and over again, and he does massive damage. Ever since Tojima was a young boy, he has always loved Kamen Rider. Kamen Rider was a hero in a TV show, and Tojima thought that he was a hero unlike any other. Tojima watched every episode multiple times, even to the point where his mother wondered if something was wrong with him. Nothing else mattered to Tojima, however, as he would be completely mesmerized every time he watched his hero. He would always cheer Ryder on while telling him not to let the Shocker win. The Shocker was a major criminal organization, and it served as Kamen Rider's enemy on the TV show. Even when Tojima's mother would say goodbye for the day, Tojima's eyes never left the screen for even 1 second. He was completely enamored, and he would even call out Ryder's moves like kick and punch. What Tojima admired about Ryder the most is how he would always fight against evil all by himself. He protected the world's peace with a heart full of justice, and Tojima vowed to one day become just like him. Tojima would always strike the same pose as his hero, and declare that he wanted to be Kamen Rider. Years later, we see that Tojima is in high school. A girl pulls him along, but he has no clue what it's about. She finally musters up the courage to confess her feelings and asks Tojima out on a date. Tojima's mind is blown from the shock, but he quickly responds and tells her that he would love to take her out. Surprisingly, the girl apologizes, and it is revealed to be a prank. Tojima is devastated as the entire school laughs at him, and the bully Kidogawa reveals that the prank was all his idea. Emily is actually his girlfriend, and she lost a bet where she had to confess to Tojima as punishment. Tojima simply walks away after being humiliated, and we see that the dumb girl feels bad. When alone, Tojima has a memory from when he was a child. He stood by while a group of kids were playing rock, paper, scissors. The winner would get to act like Ryder, while the others had to be part of Shocker. Tojima looked down on them, as he always knew that you can't become Kamen Rider by playing rock, paper, scissors. They were just silly children trying to act like heroes, but Tojima never played pretend. Tojima struck the trademark pose and declared that he was serious. Back to the present, Emily finds Tojima and apologizes for tricking him. She's clearly upset, so Tojima accepts her apology. They get to talking, and Emily admits that there's something special about him. Over half the guys at their school are punks, but Tojima isn't a delinquent at all. However, she can tell that he isn't exactly normal either. Tojima doesn't have any friends, and people talk about how they have seen him shouting out to the river while striking poses. Tojima doesn't know how to respond, but he doesn't need to, as this crazy girl is enamored by how mysterious he is. Just then, some jerk wonders if Emily broke up with Kidogawa and scoffs at the idea that Tojima might be her new boyfriend. His name is Ryota, and he reminds Emily that Tojima's a loser, so she might as well go out with him instead. Emily tells Tojima that they should just leave, but Ryota stops her. Tojima instantly steps in, telling Ryota to let her go, while inflicting massive pain by twisting his arm. Ryota tries to fire a punch back at him, but Tojima is not to be messed with as he stops the attack. Tojima releases him, but he also says that it's time for payback, and he obliterates Ryota with a devastating punch right to his face. Ryota's buddies try to avenge him, but Tojima shockingly stops both of them at the same time. Again, Tojima declares that it's payback time, and he uses 2 explosive kicks to bring the thugs to their knees. The bullies can only writhe in pain, and Emily stands speechless, shocked by Tojima's display of strength. Tojima is being stoic as always, and he simply explains that he was just giving them what they gave him. Tojima walks off dramatically, and Ryota vows to get revenge. Days later, Emily is taken captive by more thugs from the rival school. She screams in terror, and Ryota calls out to Tojima. Ryota demands for him to come down, and he declares war against him for what he did. Other students watch in horror, and they all wonder what Tojima did. To make things worse, no one from Kidogawa's gang came to school today, so they can't help. The teachers are also useless, but it doesn't matter, as Tojima has stepped forward. Ryota is furious after being embarrassed, so he wants to give Tojima a beating that he will never forget. Tojima has a different issue altogether though, as he points out that a bunch of kids fighting each other is nothing like a real war. Kids like them don't have jobs, and they aren't even real members of society yet. Tojima is disgusted by kids that talk about rising to the top or having showdowns with rival schools, especially when they're still getting food and money from their parents, even bathing and sleeping under their house. Tojima declares that for kids like that to be talking about war is just embarrassing and incredibly childish. Instead, if they want to fight so badly, they should be more mature like him and fight against evil. Everyone is stunned to hear him talk this way, but Emily seems to be falling in love. Ryota has heard enough, so he and his goons all charge at him. Tojima is not one to back down, however, so he charges right back at them. Unfortunately, he's severely outnumbered, and Tojima takes an absolute beating. Emily watches in horror as Tojima can only try to defend himself, and the gang just keeps going until they're all exhausted. Tojima's a complete mess as he was just beaten to a pulp, and Ryota declares that he will be taking Emily as his prize. Emily begs for help, but everyone in the school is powerless, and they don't do a single thing. In her despair, Emily calls out to Tojima, and her cry for help brings our hero back on his feet. He demands for everyone to stop, and everyone in Ryota's group is stunned to see that he was able to get back up. They were sure that Tojima was unconscious, but he's not done. Tojima dramatically removes his coat and tells the gang that he never wanted to use this power that he has against them. Unfortunately, they have left him with no choice, so Tojima removes his shirt. Ryota can't understand what the markings on Tojima's stomach are, and they're even more confused when he strikes a pose. Tojima continues with his theatrics as he says Rider while striking another pose and saying transform. He leaps towards the gang with immense presence and yells out Rider fight. Everyone stares with both shock and confusion, and Tojima finalizes his transformation by dramatically saying Kamen Rider. Nothing happens, so the thugs all laugh, and they call Tojima crazy for doing all that nonsense. Ryota would soon regret mocking him, however, as Tojima unleashes a punch that sends him flying several feet into the air. Everyone's jaws drop as they watch his body soar in the sky, and moments later we see that Tojima somehow managed to defeat every single one of the thugs. The teachers and even Kitagawa witnessed everything, but they still can't believe what they saw. Emily wonders who Tojima really is, so our hero dramatically turns to her and tells her that he's Kamen Rider. Emily is very emotional, so Tojima approaches her and finally smiles for the first time. He assures her by telling her that everything will be okay, but she's terrified of him. She runs for her life, and Tojima's soul is crushed. Tojima realizes that he was right all along. He should never have transformed, because the only enemy he should be fighting is Shocker. We return to the present, where we see Tojima training in the forest. Tojima shows that he isn't crazy, as he thinks about how Kamen Rider and Shocker are from a TV show. They don't exist in the real world, and no matter how hard he trains, he can't be Kamen Rider. His anger grows as he repeats to himself that he can't possibly become a Kamen Rider, and he keeps launching attacks at the tree. Just then, Tojima hears something approaching. It turns out to be a bear, but Tojima isn't scared at all, and instead he's just disappointed that it wasn't a Shocker monster. The bear attacks him, so Tojima has no choice but to defend himself. The bear is the one that ends up being shocked as Tojima slams him into the ground, and it wonders if Tojima is really a human. The bear proves to be a formidable opponent as it slashes Tojima across the chest, but it's not enough. Somewhere along the line, Tojima had gotten strong enough to go toe-to-toe with the bear, and he demonstrates that by sending his elbow straight into its eye socket. The bear decides to get out of there, but Tojima doesn't even consider it a victory. Beating a bear would be an accomplishment for any normal person, but it doesn't make Tojima a Kamen Rider, and that's all he wants. That has been his goal for as long as he can remember, but he reminds himself that this is the year that he turns 40 years old. Moments later, we find Tojima at a toy shop, where he's ready to sell all his Kamen Rider memorabilia. The clerk is amazed by how much rare stuff he has, but Tojima reveals that he has 6 more boxes filled with stuff, and another 10 back home. Back home, we see that Tojima has sold all his Kamen Rider merchandise, leaving his home completely empty. His reason for selling it all was because the idea of dying in solitude in a room full of Kamen Rider merchandise, only for it all to be thrown away by a stranger, was too much for him to bear. Soon after, Tojima is stunned as he reads the headline of an article. It says that Shocker has made an appearance, and Tojima trembles while trying to play the video because this is what he has waited for his entire life. The report reveals that a convenience store was robbed a couple days ago, and the culprits were wearing black ski masks in the style of the enemy organization from the Kamen Rider TV program. They stormed the store while also imitating the Shocker villains by making the same sounds as the ones from the show. This is a bit of a letdown for Tojima, as they just robbed a store, and that isn't the level of crime that Shocker participated in on the show. At work, Tojima overhears that there was just another Shocker attack, and they have been happening all over recently. A trend seems to be starting, but Tojima refuses to believe that it's the real Shocker. We then watch as a news report shows several of these copycat crimes happening across the country. One of the guys was caught, and he revealed that he simply did the crime because he had one of those masks at his house. Also, for some reason, when he struck the pose and made a weird noise, he felt like he got stronger. It was the first time that he felt like he could accomplish something in his life. Tojima has moved away from that life though, so he just calls this guy an idiot. One night, Tojima attends a festival near his house. A kid talking to his father reminds him of his father and the time he was given $30. His father knew that Tojima loved going to festivals, so he gave Tojima money to buy whatever he wanted. Tojima now enjoys the same snack he did back then, and really enjoys the nostalgia. Elsewhere, we watch as a mysterious man gives some punks the masks that have been seen all over the news. His name is Naka, and he explains to them that today's job is a shakedown. The punks don't mind wearing the masks, but one of them bravely points out that the rest of the act is pretty embarrassing. They don't like doing all the poses, and the sounds they have to make are even worse. Naka doesn't really care, and just explains that he has always liked Shocker more than Kamen Rider. He says that is why he became a gangster, but the punks can't believe how dumb that origin story is. Naka goes on to say that in Shocker terms, he would be a monster, and they would be his 3 combatants. That being the case, they have no choice but to obey his order. Seconds later, the punks rob a stand at the festival. This just so happens to be right where Tojima is, and the punks really start messing the stand up. Tojima's stunned to see that this is one of the infamous Shocker robberies, and it's enough to freeze him in place. The poor owner's taking a beating though, so Tojima decides to act. He heads to another stand and asks how much it would be for one of the masks that's for sale. The punks continue to harass the shop owner, and Tojima struggles with the decision that he has to make. It's the life that he left behind, but he knows that he can't just let Shocker get away with what they're doing. Tojima cycles through his entire life of doing the pose over and over again, but this time it's actually against Shocker. Tojima places the mask on his face, and his blood begins to boil. His heart races, and Tojima steps forward to declare that Shocker has done enough. The punks wonder who this weirdo is, so Tojima declares that he is Kamen Rider. He can't help but cry, as he thought that this part of his life was gone for good. But this just makes the punks mock him. Naka, on the other hand, is in the crowd, and he's actually intrigued to see a Kamen Rider go up against his Shockers. Tojima refuses to let himself be mocked, and he tells the punks that he's serious. Tojima gets in a powerful stance and loudly says Rider Punch, while crushing each of their skulls in. The big guy is the only one left, so Tojima takes to the sky to land his Rider Kick, knocking the guy out cold. Everyone is left completely speechless by his act of heroism, and Tojima can't believe how amazing it feels. He looks around, realizing that all eyes are on him, so he runs off before anyone tries to find out who he is. Elsewhere, a girl reads a headline about Kamen Rider beating Shocker. She's infuriated by this because she wanted to do it first. She's insulted by this Kamen Rider who only wears a mask instead of a full suit like her, and she wonders who the guy thinks he is. The next morning, we meet Yuriko as she teaches her class. She reads a poem to her students, and one of them takes a special interest in her great teaching ability. The poem involves a man falling for another man's wife, and she calls on the very focused Asano to rephrase the last line in more modern terms. This kid hasn't paid one single bit of attention to the lesson, so he absolutely butchers it. He says that the main character in the poem confesses his love to his teacher, but that isn't it at all. Yuriko politely corrects him, and Asano's completely embarrassed when the entire class laughs at him. Back home, Asano can hardly contain his emotions as he thinks about how much he loves Yuriko. He wishes he could be with her right now, and imagines all the refined things that she likes to do in her free time. Asano pictures her doing sophisticated things, like admiring exquisite paintings or playing her grand piano. He imagines her elegance on full display as she enjoys some tea in her graceful garden. His dreams couldn't be further from the truth, however, as Yuriko smashes weights like an absolute brute. She grunts like a barbarian while pumping iron and fuming over the Kamen Rider that just appeared. Yuriko hates him with every fiber of her being because he dares to call himself Kamen Rider while only wearing a mask. A look into her past reveals a time when Yuriko came home crying after being bullied. Her father wondered why she didn't defend herself, so Yuriko explained that it was because the bullies were all boys. Understanding how delicate the situation was, her father realized that he knew just the thing she needed to see. He showed Yuriko a later installment of Kamen Rider, featuring the latest Kamen Rider named Stronger. Of course, Yuriko had no clue why he was showing her an old TV show, but he told her to just keep watching. In this episode, a woman named Yuriko was introduced, and she told Stronger that she would fight alongside him. Stronger was concerned because she was a woman, but was quickly amazed when she revealed her transformation. Yuriko was the electrowave human called Tackle, a cyborg created by a villain, but she decided to rebel against them. Yuriko's father had waited for the perfect moment to show this to Yuriko, as Tackle was the first warrior woman in Kamen Rider. Little Yuriko was instantly hooked as she watched her new role model take down countless Shocker goons. Tackle was an ally to good children and a righteous warrior, so Yuriko admired her to no end. Of course, this meant practicing Tackle's electrowave throw attack and finishing it off with her signature pose. Her father was right there by her side, critiquing her every step of the way to make sure that she emulated her new idol perfectly. He was extremely well versed in everything Kamen Rider, so much so that he had Tackle's every mannerism engraved in his mind. A few of the characters would shorten their names when announcing themselves to make it sound better, and Tackle was one of them, as she would call herself Tack. Yuriko quickly corrected this to emulate her idol as accurately as possible, until her father proudly awarded her a perfect score. When alone one night, Yuriko used her electrowave throw on her most powerful nemesis, and it accidentally knocked over some videos. Among them was episode 30 of Kamen Rider, an episode she had never seen before. Yuriko, eager to see her idol in an unseen episode, played the video, but she was confused by its title. It was Goodbye Tackle, her final battle. Unfortunately, the episode was absolutely horrible to Yuriko. Tackle was critically wounded by an evil doctor, so in order to protect Stronger and ensure victory, she activated her ultimate ability called the Ultra Cyclone. Yuriko was manic and could hardly understand what was happening, so all she saw next was an explosion that resulted in Tackle losing her life. Witnessing the death of Tackle was too much for the young Yuriko to bear, and the traumatic experience left her in utter shambles. It plunged her into a suffocating abyss of despair with no salvation in sight. Eventually, Yuriko's father would return home from work, horrified to find Yuriko drowning in a pool of her own tears. As she recovered from the near-death experience, Yuriko could only wonder why Tackle had to die and why Stronger didn't save her. Her father explained that Tackle's Ultra Cyclone ability was actually a self-destruction mechanism, a finishing move where she sacrifices her life to defeat the enemy. The enemy she was fighting was just too powerful, and she had no other choice. Her life ended, but Tackle managed to save the day and protect Stronger. Tackle saving Stronger brings some relief to Yuriko, and her father adds that Tackle was without a doubt the best heroine ever. That is exactly why he named Yuriko after her. She stood for justice, and no matter how badly she was beaten, she always kept fighting. Tackle even kept up the good fight until the very end. Her father's speech was just what Yuriko needed to hear, as it was finally able to mend her broken heart. Soon after, Yuriko's father would reveal that he made a costume for her to wear. It was Tackle's costume, and he declared that Tackle wasn't dead because she was right in front of him. Yuriko was stunned as she began to break down in tears, wondering if she could really be Tackle. Her father teared up as well, as he assured her that she was Tackle, and Yuriko's confidence was instilled. Yuriko did the signature pose while announcing herself as the Electrowave Human Tack, and she told her proud father that she would be Tackle from now on. Yuriko has been working to become more and more like Tackle every single day since then. She is currently 24 years old, continuing down that path, while working as a teacher. Her hate for this new Kamen Rider is overwhelming though, as she calls him a fake and a phony. She refuses to be outdone by some half-wit that's not even doing it right, and declares that she's Tackle number 2. She sprawls her hate for him all over her chalkboard, but the students have no clue what it means. That night, Naka tells his goons that they're going to hit a string of 5 convenience stores. The guys can't believe that they're still doing this, and they are sure that they will get caught soon if they keep increasing the rate of crime. Naka doesn't want to hear any complaining though, and reveals that he will be joining them this time. The goons try to say that they can handle things themselves, but Naka has a message for them. He dramatically explains that he is a fighter, but there isn't much need for his kind these days. The best he can manage is dragging the 3 of them around, acting like he is still a kid. Naka says that he would have preferred to look like a monster, like the Spider-Man from Kamen Rider, but the goons still have no clue what he's talking about. His speech is over though, so he tells his crew to get ready and make sure that they put some feeling into their act this time. Elsewhere, Asano confesses that he likes Yuriko. He barely had the courage to do it, but now that he has, Asano makes sure to repeat it over and over again. Being confessed to by one of her students shocks Yuriko and leaves her speechless. Nearby, Naka and his group rob a convenience store and leave for the next one. The guys panic when they see the police coming, and Yuriko is stunned when she sees a shocker robbery going down right before her eyes. On top of that, their leader seems to be pretty powerful. Naka doesn't fear the police at all, so he instantly bashes one of them in the face. Asano is oblivious to the world around him as he continues to confess to Yuriko, but she is horrified as she watches Shocker obliterate the police. The goons wonder if it's a good idea to beat up the police, but Naka's already moving on to the next convenience store. Yuriko's shock quickly turns to horror as she realizes that the Shocker robbers are about to get away. They have been her prey for as long as she can remember, so she ditches the kid and chases after them. Elsewhere, Tojima reads the article about Kamen Rider's heroics, and he's still in disbelief that it was actually him. Just then, his jaw nearly drops to the ground as he encounters the Shocker robbers again. He calls out to them, announcing his presence, but they have no clue who he is. Tojima quickly realizes his mistake and crouches down to put on his costume. He puts on his mask while saying transform and striking the Kamen Rider pose. The goons immediately recognize him as the guy that beat them up the other day, and Naka is clearly not happy. Tojima declares that he's Kamen Rider, and the emotions behind it are still powerful as he begins to tear up again. Tojima announces that he's been searching for them, but the goons can only think about how he's crying again. Nearby, Asano desperately chases after the love of his life, but she's too focused on her target. Things take an even crazier turn for her, however, as she sees the person that she hates the most. It's the guy who took down the shocker robbers that she was supposed to take down first. Worst of all, he's a cheap-looking imposter rider who goes around wearing just a mask. These crimes against humanity cannot be dismissed, so she vows to stop him. Meanwhile, Tojima's ready for battle, so he tells the shocker goons to bring it on. It's clear to Yuriko that he's trying to steal her prey again, but she refuses to let it happen on her watch. She says Asano's name to calm him down, and all his wildest dreams come true as she strips down right in front of everyone. Nothing is more important to Yuriko than her goals, so she puts on her tackle uniform and asks Asano to hold onto her bag. Tojima has grown tired of Shocker just standing there, so he decides that he will have to attack first to end their crime spree. He dramatically begins to say Rider Punch, but he's interrupted by Yuriko, whose attack sends him flying. The shocker robbers have no clue what's going on, and Yuriko strikes the signature pose while announcing herself as the Electrowave Human Tack. No one is more shocked than Tojima, as he instantly recognizes her as Tackle from the show, and she declares that Tackle still lives. The goons wonder if her body is the only thing that has matured, because her brain still thinks like a child. One of them offers her some candy, but Yuriko quickly shows that this is no game, as she lifts him up. Tojima can't believe his eyes, and Yuriko uses her electrowave throw to send the guy straight into the other thugs. Everyone watches in utter amazement as Yuriko has defeated the villains. Yuriko rushes to recover her bag, and Asano thanks her for blessing him with the opportunity. She has to stop him from saying her real name, and he promises to keep her secret. Yuriko makes her heroic exit, and Asano once again confesses his love. Naka's annoyed by the girl as he pulls his mask off, and he tells Tojima that the grudge between them is not over. Tojima is quick to point out that the girl hit him too, but there's no time to talk, as police sirens can be heard in the distance. Naka simply exclaims that he always liked Shocker better, and he leaves with his crew. Tojima removes his mask and wonders who that girl was. She's a complete mystery, but there's something else about her that captivates him. This girl seems to love Tackle as much as he loves Kamen Rider, or maybe even more. The next morning, Yuriko's delighted to see that there are articles about Tackle this time. Later, Naka and his crew gather again after being defeated. One of them wonders what Naka is holding, so he reveals that he found a monster mask at a store. It was on sale, so he bought it and shockered it up a little. Naka puts it on and stuns his subordinates, as he declares that wearing it turns him into a monster known as Yakuza Man. He wonders how he looks, but the goons are speechless. Naka's completely serious though, as he points out that there are riders and a Tackle on the streets now. If there's room for them, then there's room for a monster like Yakuza Man. He announces that they will be continuing their work tonight, but the guys really hope that he isn't talking about what they think he is. Much to their dismay, Naka declares that they will be hitting another convenience store. At the nearby Rosemart, a live streamer talks to his chat. He reveals that he will be buying 100,000 yen worth of snacks because it's top tier content, and he wipes an entire shelf clean. Just then, the shocker robbers arrive. They terrorize everyone, and Naka instructs the cashier to give him all the money. The girl just screams for help without moving an inch, so Naka wonders why she just doesn't run away. The streamer hides nearby, and instead of doing anything useful, he decides to change the title of his stream to Live Shocker Robbery. He is sure that hundreds of viewers will start rolling in, but one of the goons spots him. The goon points out that the kid is getting way too many snacks, but the streamer just lies and calls it his dinner. The shocker is concerned that the kid will get fat, but the streamer points out that he already is. This is all pretty scary as the kid's life could be in danger, but he's still excited because his stream is blowing up. It's been posted to news sites, and viewers are coming in by the thousands. His viewer count is quickly approaching 100,000, and he thinks about how this is finally his moment in the spotlight. Nearby, we see that Tojima is watching the live stream, and he's rushing there with justice on his mind. He notices some random girl rushing next to him, and they both wonder where they have seen each other before. Back at the convenience store, a man tells Naka that he's being a nuisance. The streamer can't believe the content he's getting, as now there's a vigilante customer on the scene. Naka demands to know who this guy is, but the guy simply explains that he's someone telling them to stop what they're doing. The goons wonder if this guy thinks he's some kind of hero, but they have it all wrong. This guy surprisingly strikes the shocker pose and instantly transforms. Naka and his crew freeze, in awe of what they just witnessed, as this guy is clearly what they were just pretending to be. The streamer has no words either, and the two heroes are horrified by this guy's arrival. The man is tired of the talks about shocker robberies going on recently, and he's disgusted. He calls Naka and his crew shocker imposters, and he tells them to listen closely to the sound of the real thing. Our two heroes arrive at the scene of the robbery, and Tojima very casually excuses himself. He doesn't want his identity to be found out, so he crouches down to put his mask on, and declares that his transformation is complete. Yuriko is horrified as she just now realizes that the guy who has been calling himself Kamen Rider has appeared. Tojima dramatically turns to announce his arrival, but Yuriko angrily interrupts him. She declares that what he does is nothing like Kamen Rider, and she strips down to show him how it's done. Yuriko puts on her entire uniform and announces that she's the Electrowave human Tak. Tojima is shocked to see the tackle from the other day, and she points out that Tojima is just a middle-aged guy that wears a cheap mask. Tojima can only wonder how she's not ashamed of wearing a full uniform like she does, but she isn't ashamed at all. This small moment makes Tojima realize that he isn't really ashamed either. Just then, the robbers come crashing out of the store after being punched by the shocker member. The streamer can't believe that he's getting such great content for his stream, but he gets taken away by someone. Naka is left standing in utter disbelief, and he can only tremble as he wonders who this guy is. He can only wonder if this guy's a real-life shocker from the original show, and the guy simply confirms that he is. Naka is now the one to tear up, as he has always admired Shocker since he was a kid. Naka begins to tell his childhood story and how he was inspired by Shocker to become a gang boss, but the guy doesn't care for even a second. He doesn't waste any time and just kicks Naka into the ceiling. He stands menacingly as Naka's body swings in the air, and Yuriko isn't sure about what to make of the situation. She's surprised though to see that Tojima's in tears. He loves all things Kamen Rider, and seeing the real deal Shocker is an unbelievable situation. Tojima instantly gets into his attack stance because having a real Shocker in front of him means that the guy will be able to take his most powerful attacks. He unleashes his Rider Punch as the Kamen Rider theme song plays in his head, and the Shocker is in disbelief as he must protect himself from the attack. He becomes infuriated, however, so he fires back. His punch sends Tojima crashing to the ground in dramatic fashion, but this just makes Tojima even more emotional. This is like a scene straight out of the Kamen Rider show, and having everything be so real leaves him in shock. Tojima dramatically tells the Shocker to get ready for his next attack, but Yuriko punches him away because she wants a turn. She announces that she's nothing like the Kamen Rider wannabe, and instead she's proof that Tackle still lives. Yuriko charges in while saying that she's Tackle too, and she instantly starts by dodging the guy's attack. She follows it up with a crazy powerful counter, but the Shocker's no chump. He throws a terrifying kick himself, but he's stunned when Yuriko manages to dodge it. She follows that up with a perfect form pile driver that is called the Electrowave Throw, and she smashes him into the ground. Tojima jumps back into the fight at this moment and uses Rider Kick to crush the Shocker's insides. Yuriko is shocked to see such a powerful attack, and she wonders if they really just beat a real deal Shocker. She quickly becomes upset as she wishes that Tojima didn't step in, but the lights go out in the store. A mysterious man appears, and he expresses his disbelief to see that some ordinary humans are capable of beating a combatant. Our heroes have no clue who this terrifying guy is, but he has some kind of power emanating from his body. He's capable of some real strange things as he drops the streamer's body, and it turns to a pile of mush. Our heroes are then horrified as the guy's mouth opens to reveal that he's some kind of monster. A dart then flies out of his mouth, and it hits the Shocker combatant, corroding him as well. The guy takes a moment to consider doing the same to Naka, but decides against it because getting rid of too many of them could cause problems for him later. Our heroes are in complete disbelief as this guy leaves, and they both realize that he was the most real member of Shocker that they have encountered. Afterwards, our heroes reveal their true identities to each other. Yuriko points out that running around with just a mask, pretending to be Kamen Rider, is unacceptable for a 40-year-old like Tojima. She says that it's something that only a child should be doing, but Tojima proudly declares that his heart is more Kamen Rider than any child's could ever be. Yuriko doesn't even know how to respond to that insane statement, however she is grateful for this ridiculous conversation. It's helping her to avoid fixating on what they just witnessed. Shocker's more real than they ever could have imagined, and they also just beat one of their combatants. Worst of all, that one guy was a real-life monster, but Yuriko still can't wrap her head around it. Just then, our heroes are surprised when their waiter knows exactly what they're talking about. He was watching the stream when it all went down, and he introduces himself as Mitsuba. He's actually the manager of this restaurant, and he reveals that he's just like the two of them. They're all birds of the same feather, and he knew that the second they walked through the door with their disguises on. Yuriko clarifies that they aren't cosplayers or anything, but Mitsuba already knows. He could tell how serious they are by the conversation they were having, so that is why he has decided to tell them something. Mitsuba confirms that Shocker very much does exist, and explains that he's one of the few witnesses to their evil. Mitsuba offers to tell them his story, but warns that it's very long. He explains that it covers his entire life, from childhood all the way up to right now, and it would probably be enough information to fill 5 entire novels worth of text. It would take 3 hours to tell in conversation, but that could turn to 6 hours if he got carried away explaining everything. Tojima's very eager to listen to every single detail, but Yuriko thinks that this would be a good time for her to head home. Unfortunately, Mitsuba has already started telling a story, and we see that a mysterious girl is watching them. Mitsuba explains that it all started when he was 6 years old. There was a house that he and his brother used to pass every day on their way home from school, and this place was a neglected property. It was a garden house overrun with fruit, so tomatoes and watermelons were growing all over the place. One day they were terrified by some guy that came out of this house, but he just offered them some vegetables. Mitsuba and his brother loved the taste of the tomatoes, so the man offered to keep giving them more whenever they wanted to stop by. Unfortunately, the guy's neighbors didn't like his house so much, so they began filing complaints about how all his fruits were attracting unwanted animals and their waste. The guys that came to inform him were terrified of the bees there, so they left and just told him to clean things up. Mitsuba and his brother would then come by, because by this point they had gotten used to trying all the fruits and vegetables that the man had to offer. However, the man was also being told to get rid of all his plants by some thugs. It's unclear why they were so upset, but they even threatened to burn all his plants to the ground, along with the entire house. The man didn't pay any attention to their threats, however, and instead he just offered to let them eat as much as they wanted of whatever fruit or vegetable that he had. The guys were furious, as they reminded the man how serious they were. The man's entire life was in danger, and they said that they didn't want any of his stupid vegetables. The man assumed that they just weren't fans of vegetables, so he offered them some persimmons instead. The thug angrily repeated what he just said, but stopped as he remembered that persimmons are actually pretty good. He gave one a try and was amazed by how delicious it was. The other thug joined him, and their lives were changed forever. Just then, Yuriko interrupts the lovely story and reminds Mitsuba that he was supposed to tell them about Shocker. Mitsuba, however, is a fan of good storytelling, and he reminds his listeners that a good introduction is the best way to get people more interested in the story. Mitsuba continues just after the thugs finish enjoying the tasty fruit. The man told them that they could come back whenever they wanted, but one of the thugs just punched him instead. The kids were shocked, and the thug explained that the quality of the fruit didn't matter. The man's neighbors paid them to threaten him, but the thug wanted him to know that it wasn't actually personal. As a thanks for the fruit, the men decided to come back the next day to handle business, but the man had already made his decision. He knew that he could no longer live in the house, and the thugs were glad that he was finally beginning to understand. It turns out that they were the ones that were misunderstanding, however, as the man explained that he would burn his own house down, along with the thugs. The man's demeanor completely changed in that very moment, as he repeated that everything had to burn, including the thugs. Everyone involved was then completely stunned, as he transformed into a real Shocker. The thugs still tried to fight him, but only ended up getting destroyed. Mitsuba and his brother hid in terror, and the guy calmly just went back to his house. The Shocker combatant immediately set his house on fire with a huge explosion, so the kids woke the thugs up so they could all get away. Tojima is left speechless as Mitsuba explains that it was his first encounter with Shocker, and it began his lifelong search for them. Mitsuba then explains that it only gets more dramatic from there. Yuriko can't believe that there's even more to his story, but Tojima's at the edge of his seat, waiting to hear what happens next. Just then, one of Mitsuba's employees reminds him that sitting around with customers is not proper manager behavior. Mitsuba obediently agrees to go back to working when she tells him to, and he explains to our heroes that he's actually dating that girl. Mitsuba assumes that his girlfriend is just jealous because of how attractive Yuriko is, but Tojima says that they didn't really need to know all that. Mitsuba does have one last important thing to tell them. He reveals that Shocker has already infiltrated human society to a very considerable degree, and they could be anywhere. Tojima has never felt more alive after hearing all this, and Yuriko agrees that they will need to fight Shocker because she is Tackle. Tojima becomes nervous as he asks if she wants to hear his backstory as well, but Yuriko's not interested. She's calling it a day, but first Tojima asks her to exchange contact information. He makes it clear that it's only for professional reasons, as they will both be fighting Shocker, but he's clearly nervous. Nearby, Mitsuba apologizes to Yukariso as she appears to be upset about him enjoying himself with some random people. She simply wonders if he actually loves her, so when he says yes, she happily returns to work. Deep down, Mitsuba apologizes because he can't tell Yukariso the truth. He doesn't want her getting hurt, and if anything, he wants to fight Shocker to protect her. Yukariso happily runs away, completely oblivious to what he's thinking, but she then gets very serious for a moment. Back at school, Asano listens to Yuriko as she teaches her class about some poem. This makes him think back to the best day of his life, and he wonders if it was all a dream. It was when Yuriko transformed right in front of him, and he reminds himself that it couldn't have been a dream because people were talking about it online. The thought of him being the only one that knows her secret makes him go even crazier, and things take a crazy turn in his mind. He imagines himself asking for things in return for keeping her secret. The fictional Yuriko wonders what kind of things he's talking about, but Asano responds in real life by saying that he wants all kinds of stuff. Of course, no one has any clue what he's talking about, so the entire class laughs at him. Later, Asano decides that he needs to be more confident, but he notices that Yuriko is talking to someone inside of the gym storage room. The conversation is a bit uncomfortable, as Yuriko tells the girl to release her hand. The girl confesses her love for Yuriko, shocking both her and Asano. The girl can tell that Yuriko doesn't recognize her, so she changes her hair and reveals that she's Yukariso from the restaurant. Yukariso completely changes her tone and demands to know what Yuriko is planning to do with her boyfriend. Yukariso calls Mitsuba stupid for obsessing over Kamen Rider and Shocker, and for betting his entire life on proving that Shocker is real. According to her, he's decently attractive, which makes him pretty popular, but girls never talk to him more than once. There hasn't been a single time that a girl has ever spoken to him twice, and she wonders if Yuriko can guess why. Yuriko doesn't respond, so Yukariso explains that it's because she always beats the life out of them. This girl then explains that while she hates how obsessed Mitsuba is about Shocker, she loves him the most when he rants about them. Yuriko has no clue what this girl even means, so she just tells her that it's information that Yukariso needs to keep to herself. Yukariso laughs like an absolute psychopath, so Yuriko begins to leave, but the crazy girl has one more thing to say. She reveals that the best part about all of this is that Mitsuba is incredibly obsessed with bringing Shocker down, but he doesn't realize that his own girlfriend is a member. This stops Yuriko in her tracks, and she's stunned when Yukariso transforms. She's in the classic pose, and she tells Yuriko that it's time for her life to end. Asano completely loses his mind after seeing a real transformation, but his girly scream gets him caught. Yukariso realizes that he just saw her real identity and determines that his life must end as well. Luckily for him, Yuriko's always ready to transform, and she tells Yukariso that no one's life will be ending today. Yuriko introduces herself as the Electrowave Human Tech, but Yukariso just mocks her uniform. She declares that a costume won't help Yuriko survive, but Yuriko kicks her straight across the room. Yuriko sends Asano home, but Yuriko refuses to let him live after seeing her secret. She announces that she will be taking both of their pitiful human lives, but Yuriko points out that her little boyfriend is also human. Yukariso's voice changes back to her girly self to say that he doesn't count, but she instantly goes back to fighting like a brute. Her punches are ferocious, and Yuriko can only survive by dodging and blocking one with her foot. Yukariso can't believe that Yuriko is managing to survive for so long, so she reminds Yuriko that she's just a human. Yukariso plans to end the fight with her next punch, but Yuriko only fakes like it hits her. In reality, she uses Yukariso's own attack to gain leverage, and loudly declares that her next move is called the Electrowave Throw. The attack is incredibly powerful, as she slams Yukariso into the ground head first. Elsewhere, Tojima gets a workout in, but he's interrupted by a message from Yuriko, asking him to help her with something. Later, our heroes bring Yukariso's unconscious body to Mitsuba. He can't tell who it is though, so Yuriko reveals that his girlfriend is actually part of Shocker. Mitsuba doesn't really believe it at first, but her face is clearly the same, and he is horrified. Yuriko can't even imagine the pain he must be in after finding out that someone he loved is in Shocker, but they also can't believe that he never noticed. In Mitsuba's shock, he reveals that Shocker is also his entire family's nemesis. Tojima is incredibly intrigued by this new detail, so Mitsuba determines that he will just have to tell them the next part of his story. It's called Mitsuba, His Brother, and Shocker, the Monster Encounter Arc. Tojima can't wait to hear it, but Yuriko just hopes that he gets to the point this time. Mitsuba then goes on to explain that after learning about Shocker during the summer, he and his brother went to stay with his grandparents. One night, some robbers came out of nowhere and beat up their grandpa. The robbers argued over how to tie him up, but Mitsuba's brother was becoming furious after seeing what they did to his grandpa. His brother's name is Ichio, and his entire body was filled with rage. Ichio then showed some insane fighting skills as he started to beat the life out of the robber. The robber eventually had enough, however, and he revealed that he was a Shocker combatant. This was the brother's second encounter with a Shocker, however, so Ichio felt no fear. His powerful attacks pushed the Shocker back, but the Shocker was relentless with his counterpunch. Mitsuba took a punch as well, and the family was tied up. The robbers were wanted criminals because they had just committed another crime, but the woman couldn't understand something. The guy was a Shocker combatant, but he was doing crimes with a human like her. She didn't know why he would want to do that though, because that would mean that both the cops and Shocker would come after him. The guy didn't really care, however, as he just thought that they made a cool team, like Bonnie and Clyde. Unfortunately for them, their little fantasy would come to a terrible end as Mitsuba's grandmother returned home. Ichio quickly informed her that they were getting robbed, and the robber was stunned to see just how huge this granny was. This granny punched her rake into the robber's shoulder, and she untied her family. She began to drag the robbers out of her home, but the guy transformed back into a combatant. Ichio wanted to rush to help his grandma, but good old grandpa explained that she could handle herself pretty well. They were shocked, however, when they heard a terrifying noise. They rushed outside, and what they saw next would traumatize the boys for life. A massive beast had massacred all three of them, including Grandma. Grandpa was absolutely horrified to see the lifeless body of the woman he loved. He called out to her and angrily charged at the beast. Of course, he was no match for this creature, so it easily disposed of him with a single attack. The brothers were frozen with terror, and the beast simply lamented how things turned out to be a mess. He saw the boys, but just called them brats, and he flew away. The brothers were completely powerless, and all they could do was sob for their deceased loved ones. Mitsuba says that he can't be sure, but that beast was most likely a Shocker monster. Just then, a voice confirms that his grandparents were eliminated by Shocker. His entrance is just as dramatic as those of our heroes, and Yuriko can't believe the aura that he is radiating. Mitsuba reveals that this is his brother Ichio, and he asks him to come meet our heroes. Suddenly, Mitsuba realizes that something terrible might happen. The brothers have desperately sought revenge against Shocker their entire lives, so Mitsuba doesn't know what his brother will do if he sees Yukariso in her Shocker form. It will surely be a disaster, so he decides to try and hide it. Ichio loudly says the word hurricane as he takes to the sky, and he lands in the most dramatic way possible. Our heroes introduce themselves, and things become very tense when Tojima reveals that they have fought Shocker before. Ichio seems almost angry after hearing this, and he demands to know who they really are. Yuriko can't understand why he's acting this way, but Tojima knows just what to do. Ichio then watches in amazement as Tojima does the legendary pose while saying Rider transform. Ichio can hardly contain himself as he witnesses this amazing transformation, and Tojima tops it off by putting his mask on while announcing that he's Kamen Rider. Ichio quickly collects himself, however, as he has a question to ask. It's simple really, so he just asks who Tojima considers to be the strongest Kamen Rider. Tojima doesn't even hesitate as he begins to say that it's the original, but Ichio interrupts him. He does the Kamen Rider pose himself in spectacular fashion, but he does transformation V3. Ichio then declares that the strongest Kamen Rider is actually V3. Tojima of course has a major problem with this, so he tells Ichio that he better be ready to back up those words. The others are then shocked when Tojima challenges him directly, and Yuriko can't even understand what's going on. Ichio explains that a mask won't make anyone the real Kamen Rider, and he doesn't need anything like that. He doesn't wear any kind of costume at all, and just does the iconic V3 pose. His glare is very intense, and he asks Tojima if he can see V3. Tojima looks at him very closely, and is absolutely shocked when he realizes that Ichio is actually able to embody V3, even without any uniform at all. Tojima declares that he really can see him, but Yuriko just thinks that they're both crazy. Ichio then dramatically explains that after his grandparents were brutally taken from him, he abandoned his humanity and dedicated his entire being to vengeance. Nothing ever mattered more to him than making sure that the culprits would someday face justice. It was only through this grueling process that his soul itself became V3. Ichio has earned Tojima's respect, but that doesn't mean that V3 is the strongest. All it means is that their fight will be a dream match between the first rider and V3. The two guys prepare for battle, but Yuriko still can't understand why they want to fight in the first place. Tojima starts by using his signature rider punch, but he's shocked when Ichio uses a punch to deflect him. Yuriko's amazed by the incredible technique, but Tojima can't even understand what just happened. Ichio explains that V3 was given the combined powers of Kamen Riders 1 and 2. Ichio is of course a huge fan, so he wouldn't have taken the name if he didn't live up to it. That's why he went to great lengths to learn all manner of martial arts. When it comes to Tojima, however, Ichio can tell by his one attack that Tojima's fighting style is self-taught. Ichio then declares that the gap between them is insurmountable, and Tojima's simply not a match for him. Because of these words, Yuriko decides that she will have to be the next to fight Ichio. Yuriko prepares to strike her pose, but she's interrupted by the infuriated Tojima. His demeanor has completely changed after having his honor insulted, so he tells Yuriko to stay out of this matter. The rage is clear in his eyes as he declares that this fight is his and his alone. Yuriko actually regrets getting caught up in the action, and Ichio is shocked when she changes back to her normal clothes. She allows them to continue, but Ichio is still stunned by what he saw. Tojima's in no mood for games, however, so he lands a direct punch on Ichio's face. He reminds Ichio to focus on his opponent and goes in for another rider punch. Ichio wonders if that is really the only move he knows, and he easily dodges it. Tojima manages to land one of the punches, however, and Ichio's stunned by how heavy his fist is. There is a ton of power behind his punch, and Tojima lands several more of them. Ichio, however, has some crazy acrobatic moves, and one of them is called the V3 Tailspin Kick. This attack marvels everyone watching, but Ichio can't believe his eyes when he sees that Tojima just took it head on and blocked it. It's in this very moment that Ichio realizes something, and he backs away. He's still in disbelief, and he wonders if Tojima is someone with the same kind of soul as him. This interesting development gets him even more fired up for their battle, but everything comes to a grinding halt when Yukariso wakes up. It takes Ichio a little too long, but he eventually fixes his eyes onto her shocker belt. This is Mitsuba's worst nightmare, as Ichio realizes that she is part of Shocker, and he loses his mind. Yukariso is horrified to see that she's still in her Shocker form, but it's too late to do anything, as the furious Ichio charges at her. He puts all his vengeful rage behind this one single punch, but he's stunned when his own brother stops him. The confused Ichio creates some distance and demands for his brother to explain why he's defending a Shocker. Mitsuba understands what she is, but he also explains that Yukariso is his girlfriend. Yukariso ends up being more horrified than anyone, as she realizes that Mitsuba knows her secret. Ichio has never been angrier after hearing this, so he can't even really believe it, and he tells Mitsuba to say it again. Mitsuba doesn't back down for even a second though, and once again says that Yukariso may be a Shocker, but she's still his girlfriend. This is music to the ears of Yukariso, as she begins to blush, and she also tells Mitsuba to say it again. Mitsuba bravely says it for a third time, so Yukariso tells him that she loves him more than anything. Ichio watches in horror, but Yukariso explains that she has something else to say. Mitsuba knows her identity now, so what they were doing cannot continue. Her mission as a member of Shocker was to approach those who knew of their existence and monitor them. If they had any comrades, then it was her job to make sure that they took any knowledge they had directly to their graves. Unfortunately, Yukariso must do her job, so she sends out a signal. This signal is received by several normal-looking people all across the city, but they all transform as they rush to Yukariso's location. Our heroes are then stunned as they find themselves surrounded by several Shocker combatants. Yukariso apologizes to her beloved Mitsuba as she begins to cry, and Mitsuba struggles to understand what is happening. Yukariso tells him one last time that she loves him, but declares that his life must now end. Yukariso cries even more as she tells Mitsuba that she truly did love him. She apologizes, however, as she simply can't love him anymore. The Shocker combatants all charge in at the same time, so our heroes have to act immediately. Yukariso is completely caught off guard as the two common riders start wiping the floor with their Shockers. Yuriko quickly transforms as well and joins the battle with a powerful punch. Yukariso is horrified as things aren't going as planned, and the heroes begin to dominate the attackers. Yukariso begins to lose her mind because she had no clue that Mitsuba's friends were insanely powerful heroes. Tojima uses his signature kick, and Yuriko tosses enemies around with her electrowave throw. In a matter of seconds, the fight is already over, and Yukariso struggles to comprehend what she just saw. These people are clearly just humans, but they somehow wiped out an entire Shocker squad. Ichio points out that she's the only opponent left to defeat, but Mitsuba once again comes to her defense. No one can believe that he's still protecting her, but Mitsuba asks everyone to give him a moment so he can speak with Yukariso. He is shocked, however, when Ichio refuses. Ichio wants answers, so he demands to know if Mitsuba intends on marrying the Shocker combatant. Of course, everyone is startled by the very personal question, but it's very simple in Ichio's eyes. He says that a man and woman being together means they intend on getting married, but even Yuriko says it's too simplistic. Mitsuba was hoping for some kind of middle ground, but Ichio declares that there is none. Either Mitsuba will marry her, or he won't, and that's all there is to it. Mitsuba desperately tries to think of a way out of this, but Ichio tells him that those are his only two options. Mitsuba tries to bring up the middle ground idea again, but this just gets him punched by his brother. Ichio demands for his brother to choose now, but they're interrupted by someone. Our heroes are terrified as they quickly realize that it's the monster they saw earlier. He's curious to know how many combatants they have defeated, but Ichio's just shocked to hear that this guy's a real-life Shocker monster. Even Yukariso's terrified of this guy, as she explains that he is her boss. Ichio wants to confirm that this guy is a real monster, but the guy isn't interested in answering any questions. He says that Ichio seems to be the type that causes trouble everywhere he goes, and he is sure that he is Ichio beat when it comes to manners. It's obvious that this guy is at the very least an enemy, so Ichio stuns everyone when he punches the guy right in the face. This proves to be a huge mistake, however, as the guy transforms into the monster and he sends Ichio flying. The force from his throw is incredibly powerful, and Ichigo just barely manages to regain his composure. Mitsuba doesn't care about anything else, so he just tells Yukariso that he will protect her no matter what. He hasn't really shown any kind of power, so Yukariso's surprised, and Mitsuba just runs off. Yukariso's completely confused because she's part of Shocker, but Mitsuba still wants to protect her for some reason. Ichigo transforms into V3, and he tells the beast that it's time for him to get serious. The others are prepared to fight as well, but Ichigo insists that he can take the monster on his own. They all begin to argue about who will try to fight the monster alone first, but the beast starts making a strange noise. Ichigo can tell that it's laughing at them, so he charges in with pure rage. He uses his V3 Mach Speed kick, but the beast stops it easily with his bare hand. Ichigo can't believe it because no one has ever done that before, and the beast really takes control. It goes to slam Ichigo straight into the ground, and Ichigo wonders if this is how his life will end. Luckily for him, Tojima keeps him from being crushed at the very last moment, and Yuriko uses the distraction to charge in. She actually manages to take hold of the beast, but it just uses her momentum against her. Tojima's Rider Punch seems to do some damage, but the monster is actually unaffected. Its counterattack is insanely powerful though, and it sends Tojima crashing into a wall. Ichigo keeps the attack going, and he manages to get the upper hand. Several of his chop attacks strike the beast in the neck, and Ichigo eventually chops its face off. This just makes everyone's jaws drop, however, as the monster's true face is revealed. A monster has never been more real, and Yukariso explains that he's called the Spider-Man. The spider explains that they're not leaving him with much of a choice, and he wonders why they all stopped fighting. Our heroes are frozen with terror, so the spider politely asks if he can take the initiative. Ichigo is trembling too much to even answer the question, so the spider declares that he will be the next one to lose his head. Ichigo just manages to regain his composure in time to dodge the monster's attack, and he realizes how close he was to losing his life. The attack left a giant crater in the ground, but the spider isn't done attacking it. It goes after Ichigo again, and this time Ichigo has no way to escape. The attack will surely end his life, but a metal rope comes out of nowhere to capture the beast. The monster is unable to escape, and everyone is stunned when they see that Mitsuba was the one that captured the beast. Yukariso had no idea that Mitsuba was capable of this, and our heroes can't believe that wimpy kid from earlier transformed into another hero. Mitsuba is completely confident now, and Tojima realizes that he's the hero known as Rider Man. Rider Man was the 4th rider ever, and he appeared in Kamen Rider V3. Mitsuba declares that he transformed nearby, but Yukariso points out that he just changed clothes. Our boy reiterates that it was actually a transformation, and he shoots the rope from his weapon to finalize the monster's capture. Ichigo is no fool, however, as he can tell that they're no match for this beast in their current state. He says that they need to retreat, and Yuriko agrees with him. Yukariso screams in fear as the spider tries to free itself, but Mitsuba tells her not to worry. The wire Mitsuba uses is strong enough to withstand 2 tanks pulling it in the opposite directions, so they should have just enough time to get away. Mitsuba tells Yukariso that it's time for them to run, but she still can't believe something. Mitsuba assumes that she is shocked by his loyalty to her, but she's actually just wondering why he's Rider Man. Mitsuba's eyes light up because he thinks she's asking him why he chose to become Rider Man. Mitsuba is never one to pass up the opportunity for a good backstory, and Yuriko can't believe that he's going to do that right now. Mitsuba has already started though, so he says that the story is called Me and My Brother's Rider Story, The Conflict Arc. He starts by explaining that Kamen Rider V3 lost his parents and little sister to monsters. He was seriously injured as well, so he swore vengeance against Shocker. His determination to get revenge led him to making the ultimate sacrifice. He volunteered to have Kamen Riders 1 and 2 turn him into a cyborg so he could personally fight against the monsters. The brothers naturally saw a lot of themselves in V3's story because they also lost their family to monsters. The boys would always act out scenes from the show, but Mitsuba was jealous because Ichigo always got to be V3. Mitsuba would always tell his brother to let him be V3 too, but he refused because there could only be one. Ichigo did give his brother a chance, but only if Mitsuba could beat him in battle. Mitsuba couldn't believe that this was his one chance, so he sprung into action. He eagerly charged at Ichigo, but he left himself wide open to Ichigo's attack. Mitsuba was out for good, so Ichigo told him that he had a long way to go before he could challenge the real V3. From that point on, the two began fighting over who would be V3. Even as they became older, Mitsuba would always remind Ichigo of his promise. He would always reiterate that if he beats Ichigo in battle, then he would become V3. Ichigo always accepted the challenge, and their battles became more intense as they grew older. Eventually, Mitsuba was able to fight back, and he would even shock Ichigo by using different types of martial arts. Ichigo was well versed in the arts as well, however, so their battles would always result in a stalemate. They would still fight past the point of exhaustion, and one of the times they fought for an exceptionally long time. At the end of this fight, Mitsuba pleaded for Ichio to let him be V3 for once, but Ichio was ruthless. He pointed out that the one who's more devoted to V3 won, and that was him. He told Mitsuba that he could be Rider Man, and he chopped his arm while saying that this was his kindness. As Mitsuba recovered, he told his brother that he didn't understand his kindness. He thought that there was nothing kind about it because Ichio just broke his little brother's arm. Ichio gave him the Rider Man mask as an explanation, but Mitsuba still didn't understand. The meaning behind it was that Mitsuba still couldn't be V3, but he could be his partner Rider Man. That was a pretty disappointing explanation, but Ichio pointed out that he was the older brother and Mitsuba was the younger one. He had 5 years of life experience over Mitsuba, so it only made sense for Mitsuba to be the guy that appeared after V3, and that was Rider Man. Rider Man was a brilliant scientist, but some enemy named General Yoroi envied his genius mind. This monster plotted his downfall and dissolved his right arm in a vat of acid. The other researchers who looked up to him performed an operation to make him a cyborg, and that turned him into Rider Man. Mitsuba realized that was why Ichio broke his arm, but that still didn't make it kind. Ichio explained further by pointing out that Mitsuba would have to lose his right arm to become Rider Man, just like the original. Ichio targeted his left arm, however, because Mitsuba's right-handed. Breaking Mitsuba's left arm meant that he could still use his right arm for everything, and he could actually be like the real Rider Man. Mitsuba began to shake as he thanked Ichio for not messing up his good arm. He was actually furious though, so he gave Ichio some kindness back by punching him in the face. That's the end of the story, but Yukariso wonders if Mitsuba is really okay with being Rider Man instead of V3. Mitsuba wasn't sure at first, but eventually he realized something. Unlike the other riders who are fully converted cyborgs, Rider Man is a normal person with a cybernetic arm. Mitsuba eventually began to idolize Rider Man because the way he fought by relying on his wit and his arm was really incredible. This makes Rider Man the best in his eyes, and Tojima could only wonder if Mitsuba built the arm himself. Mitsuba would love to explain exactly how he made it, and Tojima's eager to hear every little detail. There's no time for that, however, as the others point out that they need to run away. The spider finds them all very interesting, and he wonders who they are. They all make their escape, but the spider isn't worried. He uses some kind of telepathy to tell Yukariso to eliminate Mitsuba, and she falls under his control. Yukariso screams in agony as she cannot disobey his order, and she punches Mitsuba in the face. She begins to rain down punches on him, so the others rush to help him. Mitsuba tells him that he has things under control, however, as this issue is between him and Yukariso. Yukariso screams like a rabid animal, so Mitsuba tries to tell her to snap out of it. It doesn't work as she has completely lost herself, so she breaks free for another attack. Mitsuba tells her once more that he loves her, and this stops Yukariso in her tracks. She continues to fight for control over her own body, and Mitsuba apologizes for not giving a real answer when his brother asked a question earlier. He's ready to answer now, so he tells Yukariso that even if she is part of Shocker, he still loves her. Mitsuba wants to spend the rest of his life with her, so he tells Yukariso that they should get married. Our heroes are in complete disbelief, and Yukariso breaks down in tears. There are tears of joy, however, as she snaps out of the spider's control, and she tells Mitsuba that she loves him too. Their affection is overwhelming, but it's outdone by the monster. The spider breaks free from Mitsuba's wires, and Mitsuba's horrified as he can't understand what it's doing next. The spider's body begins to burst with power, and its giant muscles tear its disguise to pieces. Our heroes have never been more scared in their entire lives, as they realize that this thing just transformed into its final monster form. The ground trembles with every step the monster takes, and our heroes are terrified as it prepares its claws to strike them. The beast tells them that they will all die as it goes into attack, but Yuriko shockingly jumps in to stop it. She sacrifices herself for Mitsuba as she tells him to run, but the beast just throws her into the others. The beast is confused by the female combatant's betrayal, and she doesn't back down. She begs for Mitsuba to leave, and she tells the monster that she will take it on herself. Of course, a group full of heroes each sacrifice themselves so everyone else can get away, but Tojima is the only one they listen to. He explains that in Kamen Rider Episode 13, Rider was initially defeated by the enemy. However, after some more training, he faced down an army of revived monsters. He did it without hesitating for a moment, and he fought them all by himself. It was from that moment on that Tojima decided to be like Kamen Rider. Everyone is left in awe as he declares that Kamen Rider never retreats, and he prepares his most powerful rider punch ever. His battle cry can be heard from miles away, and this ultimate punch surprisingly manages to drop the Shocker monster. The beast only continues to be confused by all this, and he wonders what Tojima even is. The monster notices that people are watching, and he reminds himself that he can't expose Shocker's existence over this pointless battle. He decides to make his exit, and he makes sure to liquefy all the combatants before he leaves. Of course, Tojima can barely hold back his emotions because that altercation was the coolest thing that has ever happened. They all go to a pub afterwards, but the waitress there is shocked to see Ichigo, who she calls Big Bro. Her name is Futaba, and she's Mitsuba and Ichigo's older sister. She's actually the owner and the manager of this pub, and she demands to know what her brothers are doing there. Ichigo explains that he chose this place because he hasn't seen his sister in ages, but Tojima's amazing deduction skills tell him that they're not on good terms. There seems to be a lot of baggage with this family, and Mitsuba explains that Futaba has absolutely no interest in Kamen Rider. Ichigo tells her that he would just like to have a drink, but Futaba reminds him that he's banned. Mitsuba tries to calm her down by explaining that they're here with friends, but she can tell that they're just more Kamen Rider fans. She wonders where people like them are even coming from, but Ichigo reminds her that she needs to treat her customers better. Futaba eventually gives in by giving Mitsuba a private room for them to drink in, but she tells them to keep quiet. If they cause any trouble, then she promises that she will make them regret it. After some drinks, Ichigo compliments Tojima on his powerful rider punch that he landed on the beast. Tojima even has to admit that it was the best punch he has ever thrown, and he's glad to see that the years of training he did are finally paying off. Yuriko can't believe that the guys are chugging down beers, and she explains that there are several problems with this. First of all, there isn't a single Kamen Rider in the show who drinks alcohol. Ichigo isn't interested in hearing her logic any further, as there are more important issues at hand. He wastes no time and asks his brother and Yukariso if it's time for the ceremony. The couple can't believe that he wants to do it right here in the pub, but Ichigo is very serious. Everyone then watches in amazement as he begins the wedding ceremony himself. He thanks everyone for gathering on this auspicious day, and he declares that it's an honor to have them celebrate his foolish brother's nuptials. He's being too loud for Futaba's liking, however, so she tells Ichigo to quit the crazy speech and just buy some snacks. Ichigo explains that he's officiating their brother's marriage, and he thinks Futaba should be here for it. Mitsuba introduces Yukariso to his sister, and Futaba can't believe how crazy they all are. She takes part anyway as a good sister, and she is just in time for Mitsuba's speech. Mitsuba explains that he couldn't be happier about this marriage, but there is one concern that he needs to address. Yukariso assumes that it's about her being part of Shocker, but Mitsuba interrupts her to say that it's not that. He made it clear that that didn't matter to him before when he proposed to her. The issue that he actually has is that Yukariso never actually accepted his proposal. Mitsuba rushed the proposal before, so he now does it properly. He asks Yukariso to marry him, and she finally says yes. It's a wonderful moment, but Futaba still can't understand what all these crazy people are doing. Everyone else is happy for them though, and the acting priest Uchiyo says that they are now married. The other heroes introduce themselves to Futaba, and she can only wonder what is wrong with them. Yukariso explains that she's a Shocker combatant, and she reveals how she got here. Her job was always to keep an eye on people that knew about Shocker's existence, and this is why she asked Mitsuba out on a date. She was surprised by how quickly Mitsuba accepted her invitation, but that's just how Mitsuba does things. All he ever really talked to her about was Kamen Rider, and especially how Rider Man was different from the others. It was strange at first, but eventually Yukariso started to love the way Mitsuba would talk so passionately about Kamen Rider. Now that she thinks about it, Yukariso believes that this is what reversed the Shocker brainwashing. Unfortunately, this also means that Shocker could end her life at any moment, but Mitsuba vows to protect her no matter what. They clearly love each other, but Futaba thinks they're all nuts and she wants no part of it. She tries to leave, but Ichigo thinks that their foolish sister should say a few words. Futaba hates being insulted, so she demonstrates that she is just as much of a fighter as her brothers by kneeing Ichigo right in his dumb-looking face. Ichigo realizes that he will have to transform before things get really bad, but our heroes tell him that he can't because he will end up destroying this whole place. Futaba kicks Ichigo right in the face, but he reveals that he finished transforming just in time. Futaba says that he doesn't look any different at all, but she does agree to give some words. Her words are actually for Ichigo, however, because she wants to unleash years of anger that she has towards him. She explains that it's been 10 years since 2nd grade, and she's still getting the cold shoulder from people because of Ichigo's dumb actions. A look into the past shows that Ichigo would always embarrass Futaba in front of her friends. He would call them all Shocker fighters when he told them to prepare for battle, and Futaba's friends would all run away. Ichigo simply explains that he was fighting Shocker, but Futaba points out that his obsession with Rider made her an outcast. She was treated like a freak because of his actions, so now she finally takes out all her frustration by beating Ichigo up. Futaba reveals that his actions affected her all the way up to high school graduation, so she never once had someone that she could call a friend. It was all because of Ichio, and now he had the nerve to bring all his friends to her bar. She begins to choke him out, but Mitsuba tries to stop her. Futaba congratulates Mitsuba as she's actually really happy about his marriage, but she feels much differently towards Ichio. Her entire life was ruined because of Ichio, and she can never forgive him. Ichio uses his V3 breakaway move, and he shows that he hasn't changed at all, as he declares that they're still fighting Shocker. Futaba has completely given up on him, but she does have one more thing to say. She then shocks everyone as she punches Ichio in the face, while calling it her hurry up and buy some snacks attack. Afterwards, Ichio takes a good look at their team. Aside from himself, they have Kamen Rider, Electrowave Human Tackle, Rider Man, and a female combatant. Ichio checks to make sure that Yukariso is willing to fight against Shocker, and she confirms that she will, as long as she gets to be with Mitsuba. It's thanks to all of them that she is free now, so she promises to do her best. Ichio points out that all the best have assembled to fight Shocker, so they need to form a plan. It could take a while, so the already hammered Ichio orders another round of drinks. Elsewhere, two groups of gangsters do a drug deal. The buyer's name is Matsuno, and he has his men weigh the drugs they're buying. The seller's name is Ryota, and he has his men count the money. Matsuno wants to make things interesting while they wait, so he suggests an old-fashioned type of entertainment. He points out that gangsters don't fight like they used to, and he suggests for one of his men to fight one of Ryota's. Ryota's caught off guard by this, so he wonders if any of his men are confident in a fight. They all raise their hands, but it's clear that none of them are really that confident. They all change their tune, however, when Matsuno shows them what the reward will be for winning, and they all eagerly volunteer. Ryota assumes that Matsuno has a real strong guy just waiting to fight, and Matsuno confirms that he does. Matsuno orders for one of his men to get Naka, and we see that Naka's having a meeting with his own thugs. They're all disappointed after failing once again, and Naka can't figure out what's wrong. They have even tried doing phone scams, but nothing they do ever seems to work out. Just then, Naka is called upon, and Naka dramatically says that he never thought his boss would ever actually go through with it. He fears that his life will be coming to an end soon, so he thinks about how awesome it felt to wear a monster mask during the Shocker robberies. He tells his men that they should really pig out at a restaurant after he's done with this battle, and they all look forward to it. Naka arrives, and Ryota can tell that he's a veteran. He wonders how old Naka is, and Naka reveals that he's 44. That's even older than Ryota, so Ryota wonders if Naka will really be okay in a fight against a strong young man. Matsuno doesn't care about any of that, and he explains the rules. Any one of the guys that is able to take down Naka will receive 1 million yen. However, if Naka takes all three of them down, then he will get the million. Saitama volunteers to be the first challenger, and he warns Naka that he did judo in middle and high school. He also had a run at the nationals while he was a senior, so Saitama's confident that the million yen will be his. He wonders what the win conditions will be, like tap out or choke out, but Matsuno just tells him to hurry up because the winner will be obvious. Saitama confidently begins the match, but he immediately gets pummeled by Naka. Naka doesn't do anything that special, but he beats the life out of the guy with several punches to the face. Naka makes it very clear that he's a winner as he knocks Saitama out cold, and he calls on the next challenger. Rock Lee volunteers next, as he's not afraid of Naka because he explains that he's also an ex-boxer. He shows off his moves as he's able to land a punch, and he suggests that Naka take his glasses off before he smashes them into pieces. Naka calmly gives his glasses to him, but he uses this moment to cave Rock Lee's skull in with a headbutt. Naka wins again, and that only leaves one last contender. His name is Ushio, and he explains that he's a washed-up sumo wrestler. He declares that taking him down won't be easy, but Naka just kicks this guy in his jewels. He left himself wide open, and Naka finishes him off with a punch to the face. Naka is awarded the million yen, but Ryota wants to see if he can beat the guy he has next. He offers Naka 5 million yen if he wins, but Matsuno wonders if it's a good idea for him to bet most of the money he was paid in their deal. Ryota is confident that this next guy won't lose, however, because he says that he would describe him as being invincible. This intrigues Matsuno, and he wonders if Naka wouldn't mind the challenge. Naka doesn't, so the next opponent is brought out. This shockingly turns out to be the transforming Shocker monster, and he ominously introduces himself as Komoda. Matsuno wonders if this Komoda guy is really supposed to be Ryota's ace up his sleeve, and he asks Naka what he thinks of this guy. Naka takes a good look at Komoda, and he gets a strange feeling about him. Komoda is giving off something, but it's not bloodlust, and Naka can't figure out what it is. Naka says that Komoda definitely seems capable, so Matsuna is eager to see who will win the fight. The two men prepare to battle, but they're interrupted by the sound of gunshots. Naka's men rush to him, and Naka is horrified when he sees the gunman. The intruder calls the rest of his crew over because he found their target. Naka immediately protects his guys from getting shot, but the others aren't so lucky. The intruders eliminate everyone else in the room, so Naka tries to buy some time. He pushes back the intruders, and he tells his crew to take the boss so they can all escape. Naka manages to get his group out safely, and the intruders decide to just let them go. These guys were simply after the drugs and the money from the deal, so they take what they were after. Unfortunately for them, we see that Komoda somehow managed to survive a bullet to the head. Nearby, Naka's men wonder what just happened. Naka explains that this was a robbery, but it didn't involve Shocker. Bullets can still be heard coming from the other room, so Naka gives his men some money. He tells them that they will have to go to the restaurant themselves because he's not going to back off after what just happened. He will make the intruders pay and make them regret ever coming here. Naka instructs his men to leave immediately, and he promises that he will see them later. In the other room, the intruders are horrified to see that Komoda is still alive. They all fire several more shots at him, and they can't understand how he just won't die. Komoda is disappointed by their actions and decides that he has no other choice. Horror then washes over the entire room as Komoda transforms into the spider monster. Naka is stunned as he watches from the other room, and Komoda begins to massacre all the intruders. Naka's frozen in shock after seeing a real-life Shocker monster, and he can only watch as it tears through everyone. The monster now approaches Naka, and he starts seeing images from his life. He can't understand what's going on, but he soon realizes that his life is flashing before his eyes. A look into the past reveals that Naka used to watch Kamen Rider, and he would actually cheer for Rider to defeat Shocker. His father was a food vendor named Okada, and one day Okada was sure that he created the next big thing. It was a taiyaki recipe, and he was sure that this would be his big break. Naka agreed that this new recipe was delicious, and Okada said that it wasn't like anything he had ever made before. He made the dough thin this time, and he filled it from head to tail with red bean paste. He used cream puff dough to change the texture a bit, and he even ordered a custom mold to keep it as thin as possible. He cooked it real fast like a crepe so it could have a crispy texture, then filled it to the brim with bean paste that's even smoother than normal. It cost quite a bit more to make, but he offset the cost by making each one smaller. Okada compared tasting one to spending a sweet moment with the Princess of Red Beans, but Naka had no clue who that even was. Okada was feeling really good about his new recipe, and he was even hopeful that its success might bring Naka's mom back to their family. Okada became more certain the more he thought about it, and even Naka became hopeful that his mom would come back. Okada named his dish the Super Stuffed Red Bean Taiyaki, and he was sure that it would be their ticket to a bright future. Naka became hyped as well, and he asked his father if he would also buy him the Kamen Rider transformation toys if it was a success. Okada excitedly said that he would buy Naka whatever he wanted, and he even showed him the catchphrase he had for the taiyaki. He declared that life is just like red bean paste because you have to enjoy it from end to end. The two couldn't have been more excited, but their dreams were shattered when not a single customer came to their food truck. Not even Okada's new signs and slogan could save them, so Naka became worried. He wondered if they would be okay, so Okada simply reminded his son that just like red bean paste, they had to enjoy this from end to end. Naka remained positive, however, and he was sure that his father would sell some the next day. Okada was inspired by his hopeful son, so he looked forward to the next day. Unfortunately, several days would fly by, and Okada was horrified as they didn't sell any taiyaki. Sometime later, Naka happily painted a mask. He eagerly showed his father what he had made when he returned home, but Naka was surprised to see a stranger with his father. Okada simply explained that he would no longer be selling taiyaki, and instead he would be moving in with this new woman. Naka could only wonder who this lady was, so she explained everything. Okada was in terrible debt, so he was forced into becoming one of the woman's dogs. Naka had no clue what she meant by calling his father a dog, and Okada said that it was exactly what it sounded like. The woman said that she would feel bad if Okada just vanished on Naka, so she brought Okada here to say goodbye. That was the full extent of her kindness, however, so she told Okada that she would be waiting for him at home. Okada begged for Naka to not ask about more details, and he simply explained that this would get rid of his debt. The two of them would have to part ways, however, so he told Naka to go live with his grandfather. Of course, Naka desperately tried to stay with his father, but it was no use. Okada simply had no choice, so he pushed Naka back, and the mask Naka made happily just a few moments ago was crushed. A while later, we see that Naka's demeanor had completely changed. He saw some kids playing Kamen Rider, but they all wanted to be Rider, and no one wanted to be Shocker. Naka wondered why they all wanted to be Rider, but the kids couldn't even understand the question. They obviously pointed out that it was because Rider's the good guy, and he is a superhero. Naka's childlike joy was completely gone, as he said that good guy superheroes don't really exist. He told the other kids that he would be Shocker, and all of them could be Riders. The kids were of course confused, so Naka reiterated that he would be Shocker all by himself. The kids all pointed out that Naka had it backwards, because it was always one Rider bravely fighting against a horde of Shocker combatants. They declared that Rider helps the weak and protects everyone from monsters. This statement really struck Naka to his core, and the kids couldn't believe that it even made him cry. They teased Naka for crying, but Naka just couldn't hold back the pain. His father tried so hard to make things work. He did everything he possibly could, but it still didn't work out. In the end, no one appeared to help them, not even some good guy superhero. With tears in his eyes and pain in his heart, Naka told the other kids to listen closely. He declared that there was no such thing as good guys or superheroes, and that is why he decided that he would be Shocker. This way he would be strong enough to live on his own without anyone's help. Naka was very serious about his decision, so he told the Rider scum to prepare for battle. Back to the present, Naka remembers these words well. Unfortunately, this would be his last memory, as a Shocker monster has pierced his chest with its arm. Naka's life begins to fade away, and he only has one thing to say. This creature before him is obviously a Shocker monster, so he tells it to let him join Shocker. The beast doesn't say a single word, so Naka pleads for it to let him join over and over again. The end of his life is rapidly approaching, so Naka makes one last effort. He strikes the Shocker pose with his last bit of strength and begs to become part of Shocker. Unfortunately, the beast remains completely silent, and Naka simply passes away. Elsewhere, Naka's men feast at a restaurant, just like Naka told them to. They were distracted by the food for a moment, but now they remember that Naka was in danger. They're all worried about him, but there's nothing they can do. They will just have to wait to see if he comes back, so they decide to just go back to eating again. Elsewhere, Naka's shocked when he wakes up. He was sure that his life just ended a moment ago, and he has no clue what happened. Naka reunites with his men, and they are horrified to see that he's covered in blood. Naka surprisingly tells them that he's unharmed, but he doesn't remember anything about what happened. Just then, the waitress gives Naka the tab for the meal. He's shocked to see that it's 300,000 yen, and he pays for it with the money he gave the guys earlier. Naka can only wonder who eats 300,000 yen worth of food, so the guys explain that they were trying to eat enough to spend all the money he gave them. Naka's upset at first, but he doesn't really mind because there isn't much else that the guys get from working for him. The guys say that they don't mind because they actually like working for Naka. Naka tries to think about what happened, and all he can remember is doing the Shocker pose. He does it again now, and all the guys are stunned when he actually transforms into a Shocker combatant. Naka has no clue how this happened, and the guys point out that all the people in the street are staring at them. They ask Naka to change back to normal, but he doesn't even know if he can. Luckily, he is able to, and the guys want to see if he can transform back to Shocker. Doing the pose again reveals that Naka can transform as often as he wants, and the guys are all amazed by him. Of course, they wonder how his clothes stay on, and Naka simply explains that it must be Shocker tech. Naka concludes that he really did pass away before, and somehow he woke up as part of Shocker. This is all terribly confusing, but Naka wonders if this means that his childhood dreams finally came true. The guys all want him to transform again, and they point out that they have never seen Naka so happy. They're all excited as they admire their boss, and they even all do the Shocker pose. Naka proudly declares that this is how the real deal does it, and he transforms again. Ishige says that he weighs 250 pounds, so he wonders if Naka could use his strength to carry him like a princess. Naka shows that he can, so the other guys want to be carried as well. Naka obliges, but they're way too heavy. He gets pretty tired, so Ishige thinks that they should go eat something. Naka points out that they just ate 300,000 yen worth of food, but Ishige explains that dessert goes to a different stomach. The tone takes a serious turn, however, as Toshi wonders what will happen to their gang. The boss of their entire gang passed away in the gunfight, so Naka says that the gang will most likely be dissolved. The guys say that they don't care, and they vow to continue working for Naka until the end of time. The guys all feast on taiyaki to celebrate, but Naka interrupts them. He says that they should all be civilians from now on, but they refuse. Unfortunately, Naka explains that everything comes to an end eventually. Sometimes that ending could even mean their lives ending. The guys are still young, however, so Naka tells them that they still have time to start over. They still refuse, and Toshi shoves taiyaki in Naka's mouth. Naka's amazed by the flavor, and he immediately transforms back to normal. The flavor of the taiyaki is identical to what he remembers from his childhood, so he frantically demands to know where they got it from. Ishige explains that it's nearby, and he points towards a nearby vendor. The vendor is being bullied by some thugs who ask him what he's doing in this area. The vendor explains that he was given permission to be here, but the thugs don't care. They just want money, but they're interrupted by Naka. These guys reveal that they're from a rival gang, and they know all about Naka. They point out that Naka beat up a group of 5 guys all by himself, and one of these thugs was one of those 5 guys. He wants revenge, but Naka completely ignores him. He's more focused on the food truck, and he's shocked when he recognizes all the same signs from his childhood. They're the exact same ones, with his father's old slogan on them, and Naka's shocked to see his father. His old father just asked for the men not to fight in front of his stand, and Naka can't get any words out. It's been decades since he last saw his father, and he can't even imagine what his dad went through. What's most heartbreaking for Naka is that even after everything, his father is now selling taiyaki again. This makes Naka remember all the times that he said that he never had any dreams or any hope. He realizes now that he just didn't think that he needed those things. His father, on the other hand, never gave up, even after all these years. Despite his entire world falling apart, his dad kept trying, and this makes Naka burst out into tears. Unfortunately, the thugs only care about themselves, so they begin to destroy Okada's food truck. Naka tells them to stop, but the thugs blame the old man for doing business on their turf. Okada tries to explain that he received permission, but the thugs point out that the people that gave him permission are no longer in business. Naka is horrified as he just now realizes what happened. Naka's gang controlled this territory, so he determines that these guys must be involved with the intruders that put an end to his gang. Naka has news for the thugs, so he declares that his gang isn't done yet because he is still alive. The thugs decide that they will just have to eliminate Naka as well, but things take a dark turn for them. Naka easily takes the guy's bat, and he begins to use it on him. The leader of the thugs turns to his most powerful thug, named Yamahiko, and instructs him to eliminate Naka. Naka pushes the leader aside, and he turns his attention to Yamahiko. Yamahiko is an absolute tank, as he's unfazed by Naka's attack, and he absolutely rocks Naka. Yamahiko is impressed when Naka shows that he's still alive, and Naka can only wonder what this guy used to do for a living. Yamahiko reveals that he used to be a pro wrestler, and he keeps beating down on Naka. Naka reveals that he also had a dream to become something when he was younger, and it finally came true. Yamahiko just tells him that it's time for his life to end, but Naka transforms to stop him. Yamahiko is completely stunned, but it's too late for him to do anything. Naka uses his attack called Tiger Driver, and he crashes Yamahiko straight into the ground. The thugs are completely defeated, and Naka simply tells Okada that he can turn them into the cops. Okada is then relieved when Naka informs him that he can also continue selling his goods here. Naka doesn't reveal his identity to his father, and simply says that he tried his taiyaki. He declares that it was really good, and there was something very nostalgic about it. Naka just tells his father that he wishes the best for him, and he begins to leave. Okada pleads for him to say who he is, but Naka doesn't have the heart to say. Instead, he dramatically turns to his father and declares that he's just a shocker combatant who is passing through. The next day, Tojima's shocked when he reads the news article about what happened. The title says that a shocker hero appeared to save the day, but our heroes refuse to believe that's true. Tojima wonders if there's really a shocker hero now, but Ichio says that there's no such thing. Yukiriso objects to this because she's sort of a good guy now. Calling herself a good guy might be a bit too far though, so she reminds Ichio that she is Mitsuba's adorable and nice wife. Ichio finally acknowledges her, but there are more important matters to discuss. Ichio brings up the spider monster, and he wonders if any of the others think that they can beat a monster. Yukirisa reminds them that it's impossible for humans to defeat monsters, but Ichio has a newfound hope. He points out that there was one man capable of knocking that monster down, and that was Tojima. Ichio shocks everyone though when he says that he has to defeat Tojima first. This is because their first fight was never really decided, and they still need to find out who is the strongest Kamen Rider. This psychopath doesn't stop there, however, as he insists that they all have a tournament to decide who is the strongest among their entire group. Everyone is in disbelief, but Ichio's still not done, and he needs a refill to replenish his thirst. He asks everyone what Kamen Rider does when faced against an unbeatable foe, and they all say that Kamen Rider trains. This is the exact right answer, so Ichio explains his plan. After 10 days of individual training, the 5 of them will reconvene and face off in this tournament. Yukariso wonders why she's involved, but it's too late, as everyone else is already on board. Yukariso thinks they're all crazy, as she reminds them that they're on the same side, but there's a very good reason for this. Mitsuba points out that by competing against each other, they will be able to push past their individual limits. Ideally, they will push each other into becoming strong enough to defeat the monster. That's exactly what Ichio had in mind, but Yukariso still thinks that they're all nuts. As they prepare to part ways for 10 days, Tojima admires Ichio's bike. Ichio calls it Hurricane, and attached to it he has a mask from the bike that he rode as a kid. Tojima is then amazed, as Ichio shows him that it even lights up. Elsewhere we see that Naka's subordinates have just finished watching a concert. Some other guy leaves the concert as well, but he is stopped by a mysterious woman. This guy's name is Tanaka, and this woman somehow knows him. Tanaka's friends wonder if this is his girlfriend, but she seems a bit off. Her terrifying eyes strike fear into Naka's heart, so he tells his friends to go on without him. He assures his friends that he will be okay, so they agree to wait for him at their usual spot. The giant girl approaches Tanaka, and she demands to know why his shocker brainwashing has worn off. Tanaka simply tells her that she wouldn't understand why he isn't brainwashed anymore, but he knows that he's in great danger. He refuses to go down without a fight, so the two of them transform as they prepare to battle. Tanaka vows to take her down no matter what, but the giant woman punches him so hard that his head turns in the complete opposite direction. Elsewhere, a woman waits for her boyfriend, and we see that he's in the restroom. He's trying to think of the perfect way to propose to the girl, and he can't decide if he should just hand the ring to her, or if he should put it on her finger when her eyes are closed. He's super nervous about it, but things take a dark turn as a giant woman appears behind him. She demands to know why he isn't brainwashed anymore, but he simply tells her that it's none of her business. They both transform immediately, and their fight causes a giant explosion. Outside, the girl wonders what's taking her boyfriend so long, but we see that he's no longer alive. Moments later, a man named Takagi tells someone that he's bringing them a cake, but the girl appears in front of him as well. Takagi has no choice but to drop his phone, and the voice on the other end calls out to her father. Unfortunately, Takagi can't respond to his daughter, but he doesn't plan on going down easily. He has heard rumors of purges against shocker combatants whose mind control has failed. He wonders if this woman is behind it, but he already knows the answer. The woman is impressed by Takagi because he was somehow able to get married and have children, all while being a combatant. She makes it clear that she knows where he lives, but Takagi doesn't take her threat lightly. He is sure that she wouldn't understand what it's like to have a family, so he explains that it's tougher than a world conquest. She simply demands to know why he isn't brainwashed anymore, and she finally gets an answer. Takagi reveals that it's because he experienced love. The woman doesn't even know what that word means, and Takagi can't really explain it. All he knows is that if the woman ever experienced it, she would find happiness too. The talking quickly comes to an end, however, as Takagi transforms, and they begin to fight. Takagi's very different from the other combatants though, and he explains why. He says that the strength of a combatant reflects how strong they were as a normal human. Takagi shockingly manages to deal some damage to the giant, and she demands to know what anything he's saying has to do with their fight. He explains that it's important because he used to be in the Foreign Legion. Takagi then lands a powerful punch right to the woman's face. He explains that the Foreign Legion is an incredible fighting force, so there's no combatant who can beat him. The giant keeps trying to attack him, but she doesn't stand a chance against this guy, and he just keeps landing strikes. Takagi declares that he has a family that he's fighting to protect, and love is the source of his strength. Takagi has completely taken control of this fight, so he prepares to land the finishing blow. He declares that he has never been happier, and that happiness has given him the strength to even defeat a shocker monster. Unfortunately, he learns that this isn't nearly true, as a monster comes crashing down from the sky to end his life. The beast says that Takagi should have known better, and the giant woman bows down to the monster. She addresses him as her master Batman, and the beast bites down on his own arm. He calls the girl Thunder Reiko, and he tells her to feast on his blood so she can become stronger. The woman thanks him for his generosity, and she begins to drink his blood. The next day, Ichio finds himself in a battle against the Spider-Man. Unfortunately, the beast easily defeats him, but Ichio declares that he isn't done yet. He goes in with a different attack this time, but the beast once again cuts his chest open. Ichio curses himself for failing over and over again, and he thinks about how Tojima was somehow able to knock the spider monster down. Ichio is determined to win at everything he does, so he declares with all his might that he won't be defeated. Meanwhile, some guys at the park watch Ichio, and they wonder what he's doing. They think that he might be the groundskeeper because he has been there so long, but they can't understand why he's talking to himself. Ichio has been training in his mind for hours, and he startles the guys by cursing at Shocker. Elsewhere, we see that Yuriko's training as well, but her training is more normal. She hits a punching bag over and over again, and she demands for herself to get faster. Yuriko says that she must surpass her limits as fast as she can, otherwise she won't be able to beat a monster. Her goal is to increase her speed and accuracy so that she can try a new type of electro wave throw. It will be the most powerful yet, and it will be one that she created herself. Elsewhere, Mitsuba trains with Yukariso, and he knocks her down. Yukariso is stunned by her husband because she can't even touch him in battle at all. Mitsuba acknowledges that he can't match her in strength, and it's even worse when he compares himself to a monster. That is why he can't even take the risk of letting his enemy land a single blow. Mitsuba is determined to push his martial arts ability as far as he can, but Yukariso wonders why he isn't using his arm cannon. Mitsuba does plan to use it against a monster, but he doesn't want to use it in his next fight. For the tournament, he wants to surpass his brother, using the martial arts that he has spent so much time polishing to perfection. Otherwise, he won't be able to claim that he is the strongest. Yukariso is completely enamored by him, and even she begins to believe that Riderman is the strongest. Her only reason, though, is because he can kiss her. Yukariso's kiss completely knocks him out, and Mitsuba wishes that Riderman wore a full-face mask. In the forest, we find Tojima punching his training tree. Tojima thinks about how he has lived a quiet and steady life. A pure 40 years of stability and mundane days. He never thought the day would come that his life would take a crazy turn like it has. Tojima couldn't be happier as he bashes the tree, and he happily reminds himself that he fought Shocker. He even fought a monster and pushed it back. Tojima doesn't want to stop now though, because he still wants to take Shocker down. Just then a wild bear appears, and Tojima greets his old opponent. This is the same bear that Tojima gave a scar to, and is clearly very angry. Tojima asks if it would like to spar again, and he says that there will be no hard feelings if one of their lives comes to an end. Tojima then transforms into Kamen Rider, and he tells the bear to bring it on. The bear immediately charges at him, but Tojima lands an absolute haymaker right in its face. The bear is even shocked as it realizes that Tojima really isn't a human after all. The bear apparently has a lot of pride though, as it can't even imagine losing to a human. The bear's attack sends Tojima crashing backwards, but our hero is quick with a counterattack. The two go back and forth exchanging blows, but Tojima eventually gains the upper hand with another punch. The bear becomes furious as it reminds itself that it's the king of the forest and it refuses to lose. Just then, Tojima launches himself off a tree and prepares his powerful rider kick. The bear's inner monologue kicks in once again, and he dramatically explains that his body feels like it's about to move against his will. The bear can't explain why, but he assumes that it's some kind of primal instinct, a natural action to take when faced against someone stronger. The bear can't stop its primal instinct, but instead of it being some kind of vicious attack, the bear simply assumes a position of submission that signals defeat. Unfortunately, Tojima doesn't show any signs of stopping, and the bear can't understand why its submission pose isn't working. Tojima lands the powerful kick right in the bear's chest, and the poor bear wonders where it went wrong. The bear can only run away now, and Tojima looks forward to the next time they see each other. After a long day, Tojima takes a moment to look at his mask and admire the setting sun. 10 days later, the heroes meet up again at Ichio's house. This place is really out in the wilderness, and everyone had to take a train and a bus to get here. It was a 3-hour-long trip, and Yuriko can only wonder if Ichio rides his bicycle all the way out here. Mitsuba confirms that this is the case because Ichio never uses trains or buses. He doesn't even have a car or a cell phone. As they approach the house, Mitsuba explains that Ichio is living self-sufficiently. Ichio welcomes his guests and explains that he has built a ring for them to fight in. He takes them there, but Yuriko points out that this isn't a ring at all, and it's more like a patch of his yard. Ichio declares that it wasn't easy building this because he had to borrow a roller from a local middle school to set it all up. It'll be more than enough for what they need, so Ichio tells them that it's time to begin. First they will have to draw lots, and Tojima's the first to draw. The sticks all have numbers on them, and Ichio instructs them to write their name under the number in the bracket that matches the number on their stick. Yuriko's number 1, and Tojima's number 2. Ichio's number 3, so Tojima points out that the two of them will get to settle their battle in the first round. Another first round matchup has Mitsuba fighting Yukariso, but Yukariso doesn't want to fight her husband. Ichio declares that the matchups don't matter, and the point is to simply do battle. The tournament is just a formality, because Ichio says that he's going to win anyway. Once he wins the entire thing, Ichio says that he's willing to accept any challenges. He will accept them from anyone, and as many times as necessary. When there are no contenders left, that will prove who is the strongest. Yukariso once again thinks about how crazy he is, but all the others are ready for battle. Yukariso still refuses to fight her husband, so everyone is shocked when Ichio just gives in and agrees to change it. He wonders if she will be okay with fighting Tojima, and she has no problem with it. He wonders if she will fight Yuriko, and she's actually eager to fight her. Ichio finally wonders if she will fight him, so she points out that she will fight anyone who isn't Mitsuba. If she does fight Mitsuba, then it will have to be in the finals. Yukariso is just as crazy as the rest of them, as she romanticizes the thought. Seeing Mitsuba fight desperately to meet her in the finals is like a dream for her. Him getting all torn up and battle damaged would be super romantic in her eyes. She imagines herself kissing him into submission and comforting him into defeat. Everyone is shocked by her crazy side, and Ichio announces that he has made his decision. Yukariso will be facing Tojima, so she tells Tojima to say his prayers. Ichio makes the changes to the bracket, and he tells Tojima that they will meet in the finals. Tojima is totally fine with it, so Ichio turns to his current opponent. It's Mitsuba, and the brothers are eager to settle their own battle. The first match is Tojima versus Yukariso, so the two of them make their way into the ring. Yuriko can tell that everyone has gotten much stronger, but she vows to win the whole tournament. Tojima and Yukariso stare at each other with great intensity, and Ichio says that he will serve as the announcer. Tojima admits that he's thrilled to be fighting Yukariso because she is part of the real shocker. Yukariso just tells him not to fall in love with her, but she is confused when Tojima begins to act strange. Tojima reveals that he has a question to ask, so he asks for Yukariso to transform into her combatant form. Yukariso's freaked out by the crazy look in his eyes, and she wonders what he will do if she doesn't transform. Everyone is then shocked by how far Tojima is willing to go as he gets on his hands and knees to beg. Yukariso pities him, so she decides to indulge him. Tojima couldn't be happier as he prepares to witness the transformation, but he's seriously disappointed. Yukariso's doing some kind of cute routine, so he tells her that she's doing it wrong. They begin to argue as she says that she wasn't done yet, so Ichio has to remind them that they're supposed to be fighting. The fighters quickly get annoyed by each other, so Yukariso actually transforms. She tells Tojima to say his prayers, but this is exactly what he wanted. He's done obsessing, however, so he gets really serious to begin his own transformation. Everyone is shocked when he finishes transforming into Rider because he really feels like a different person now. Yukariso can't understand why, and she wonders what kind of crazy training he did in those mountains. She can then only tremble in fear as Tojima gets in the stance for his Rider punch. Even this feels different than before, and Yukariso takes the powerful punch right to the face. This attack absolutely destroys her as she goes flying, and Mitsuba screams out for his fiancé. He sobs uncontrollably because Yukariso's out cold, and Ichio simply announces that the battle has been decided. It's time for Mitsuba and him to fight, but Mitsuba isn't ready. He's still worried about Yukariso, so he shocks everyone as he kisses her back to consciousness. Yukariso is amazed by him for taking such initiative, but Shiro reminds them that there is a tournament going on. He wonders if Mitsuba would rather fight Tojima to avenge his girl, but the couple is busy at the moment. Yukariso just wants Mitsuba to kiss her over and over again, so Ichio has no choice but to break it up. Ichio then stuns his brother as he declares that he has made his decision. The two of them will fight right now, so he can beat some sense into Mitsuba. Mitsuba puts Yukariso in a place where she can rest, and Yuriko is amazed as she watches him prepare for battle. He announces that he's now Rider Man, and he approaches his brother for the fight. He points out that they haven't fought for real since they fought in the 8th grade. That was when he lost, and Ichio broke his arm. Ichio reminds him that they will be fighting real shocker monsters soon, so neither of them can afford to lose. Ichio then transforms into V3, and their battle begins. Ichio moves at Mach speed to fire a punch, but he is shocked as Mitsuba flips him over. The others point out that Mitsuba moved incredibly fast just then, and Ichio tells his brother that he has improved much better than he expected. Ichio then does some strange sidestepping move, and Tojima points out that he's doing the hero walk. This walk is a way of gauging distance to an opponent that is unique to the old school riders. Mitsuba has never been so impressed by his brother as he thinks about how Ichio is at his best right now. This makes him remember how he learned martial arts specifically so he could beat his brother. In the end, he just wanted to be the coolest and strongest V3 himself. Eventually, Mitsuba had to come to terms with the fact that he was never going to pull it off. Ichio gave him the chance to become V3 by defeating him, but Mitsuba never could. Mitsuba admits that at first he didn't really like Riderman. Riderman started off as V3's enemy, and his costume was kinda weird. Mitsuba never liked how Riderman's mask didn't cover his mouth because it made him more vulnerable to face punches. Luckily, a lot has changed, and now Mitsuba's glad to be Riderman. Mitsuba goes even further, as he declares that he wouldn't want to be anyone else. He explains that when Riderman wears his mask, his enhanced suit is automatically equipped. But even then, unlike Kamen Rider, he's not fully a cyborg. Despite all that, Riderman still sacrificed himself to save Japan, and he died a hero. Even now, when Mitsuba thinks about it, his eyes start to well up, and he gets goosebumps. That is why Riderman is the best in his eyes, and Mitsuba declares that he genuinely believes that. The others are impressed by his strong belief, and even they are amazed because the two brothers have really embodied the heroes. Their battle continues as Ichio moves to Mach speed again, and Mitsuba does the same as before. Ichio refuses to get flipped again, however, so he uses his brother's head to take to the sky. Everyone's jaws drop to the floor as they witness the majestic sight, and Ichio lands his rotating kick attack. Ichio can't believe that Mitsuba survived the attack, and Yuriko explains that Mitsuba jumped back to reduce the impact of the kick. It was a very brief exchange between them, but so much happened. Mitsuba realizes that he was entranced by how cool his brother looked, so he reminds himself to stay focused. He has to hone his senses until they're razor sharp, so Mitsuba focuses on his surroundings. He tells himself to feel the 2 meters around him like it's a part of his body, and this creates a space around him. Ichio crosses a line into this space, and Mitsuba absolutely destroys him. Ichio tries to counter, but Mitsuba takes a hold of his leg. The brothers are very evenly matched though, so Ichio manages to break free. Yuriko is confused when Tojima admires the dirt, so he explains that riders are always fighting on dusty ground. The brothers continue to go back and forth, each of them impressing the other with their counterattacks. After Ichio takes major damage, he commends Mitsuba because his mastery of martial arts is truly impressive. For this reason, Ichio declares that he will have to become way more V3. Ichio really goes for it, as he says more V3 over and over again, and he tells his brother to prepare himself. He takes to the sky once more, and he announces the use of his triple V3 punch. This thing nearly crushes Mitsuba's face in, but Mitsuba moves just before the punch can touch his skull, and he sends Ichio flying. Mitsuba's left standing, but Ichio says that his brother still has a long way to go. He declares that Mitsuba won't be able to knock him down with that, but Yuriko points out that he did knock him down. Mitsuba wonders if his brother's really okay, because he's looking pretty shaky, but Ichio reminds him not to let his guard down. Ichio uses his V3 punch again, but it's no use, as Mitsuba takes him down even easier this time. Mitsuba becomes very serious, as he says that the fight is over, and this time he's the one breaking Ichio's arm. Ichio calls him a fool, however, and he tells him that he should have broken the arm the second he had him on the ground. It's too late now, as Ichio breaks free, and he launches his V3 electric heat chop. Mitsuba manages to block it, but he's shocked when he takes some kind of damage through his entire body. Mitsuba can't understand what's happening, but the pain is unbearable. Ichio commends him for being able to at least block the attack, and Mitsuba wonders when he learned something called Bagu Hazang. Mitsuba is totally stunned though when Ichio says that he doesn't even know what that is. Mitsuba doesn't know if it was a coincidence or not, but he says that Ichio has come incredibly far by trying to mimic V3. Ichio has mimicked V3's fighting style without a second thought, and now he's capable of doing advanced types of martial arts without even knowing it. Mitsuba underestimated him, and he curses himself for not noticing sooner. Ichio then commends his brother for learning martial arts, but he explains that it's not enough. He then makes one thing very clear, as he declares that Mitsuba simply doesn't have enough rider. Yuriko can only wonder what he means, so Tojima explains that Mitsuba doesn't have enough rider. Of course, this doesn't explain anything, but the guys understand completely. Ichio reiterates that Mitsuba needs more, so he tells his brother to show him more Rider. Mitsuba is furious to hear his brother still doubting him, but he soon begins to question if he's right. Ichio once more tells him to show him more Rider, and everyone is shocked as he screams Rider like a maniac. A look at what happened in the show reveals that Rider Man sacrificed himself to ensure that a warhead would detonate somewhere safe. Rider Man's sacrifice was successful, so V3 called him a true hero and someone worthy of being called the fourth common rider. Mitsuba finally realizes what his brother means, so he screams Rider right back at him. Yuriko has no clue what they're doing, but our boy Tojima is hyped about it. The brothers then say Rider Punch at the same time, and they land punches on each other. Mitsuba is stunned as Ichio smiles at him, and he shows that he isn't done just yet. His smile becomes terrifying as Ichio wonders if that's all Rider Man has, and things only get more intense. Mitsuba removes his shirt to show how serious he is, and he declares that Rider Man is the best of all. He takes to the air while preparing his next attack, and Ichio finally sees it. He encourages his brother this time, and Mitsuba lands his most powerful attack yet. This kick absolutely crushes Ichio, and the scene brings Tojima to tears. Ichio is out cold, so Tojima announces that Rider Man actually won the fight. Next up is Tojima versus Tackle, so the two of them prepare for battle. Before they fight, Ichio regains consciousness, and he almost seems like he's proud that Mitsuba beat him. Mitsuba couldn't be happier to be acknowledged by him, and Yukariso wakes up as well. She wonders if Mitsuba really beat Ichio, and he confirms that he did. Instead of joining the brothers in this humble moment, Yukariso laughs like a maniac and taunts Ichio for losing. Ichio quickly silences her though, and tells Mitsuba that he's a proper rider now. Yukariso wonders how he's even deciding that, and she says that she wants to be a proper rider along with Mitsuba. Ichio points out that she's already a proper shocker, and she realizes that she's the only genuine person here. This doesn't make her feel better, however, because she still lost the tournament despite that. Tojima and Yuriko then transform, and they both get in their stances. Yukariso mocks Yuriko because she always calls herself Tack instead of Tackle, but Ichio says that there's nothing to make fun of. Things are about to get real serious because the two people they're looking at are without a doubt Kamen Rider and Tackle. Thanks for watching my recap. Make sure to like the video.